To make a great action sequence, you have to start with a great story sequence. An action sequence can be fun to watch, but unless you're invested in this character and what they're trying to do, it doesn't mean much.
One of the things I really like about Marvel Comics is when you look at a panel, the characters really pop. You can always see the characters, you know what they're doing.
When we were building out the RAS sequence for our E3 demo, we actually went in and we talked with Insomniac a lot about how we could exactly position the villains so we would almost see like these images that flash panels from the comics themselves. We wanted to try and get that same angle and same framework into these scenes.
We don't actually do storyboards. We actually do a 3D previs. I'm talking about pre-visualization in 3D. The entire file will actually look like what you see in the final product, but it's all grayscale, and then the animators just do temp animations to block out all the scenes, block out the cameras, and then set up the flow of the actual combat. And once we agree upon what we're going to do, we then go to the mocap stage and shoot it.
To achieve both Spider-Man's motion and some of the other more stylized or superhero characters, we drew from everything possible. Right off the bat, we looked at parkour, we looked at gymnasts. We actually got amazing things out of our stunt people. A lot of wonderful things just sort of bloomed from blue sky thinking on a stage with a stunt person.
What was interesting about working on this project was that there's a lot of different characters. So for example, we have a flying enemy like Vulture, we have a giant lumbering enemy like Rhino, or we even have enemies with superpowers like Electro. So we actually have to consider each of the villains as if it's its own main character. So we have to think about the look, the effect, and even how that character moves.
How do you like my new suit? Dashing. Where'd you get it? It's an exclusive club.
If it looks good when it's really rudimentary, once it all has the bells and whistles of like finished models and lighting and audio and effects, that's just icing the cake.
We actually spent a lot of time making sure that all the surfaces look really wet. You can see at certain times when you look at the characters really closely that there's actually water dripping down their masks or their faces. And I felt that that was really important to really nail the emotion we're trying to get.
There's a sort of gut feeling that hits your stomach when you have your hands on the sticks and you're playing and you're swinging around, and you almost get this moment where you're just in this state where you're just purely interacting with that world. We're like, all right, they made a great game. And that's sort of where I've been at, you know, since probably a couple months now, and I'm really, really excited to get this out into the world and see how people react.
We have rare prototype footage of the game in its early state. Let's check that out right now, and let's take a walk down memory lane. Let's check this thing out. Nobody's ever seen this before.
Nice. Ryan, you remember this?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Ryan, why don't you walk us through this? Yeah.
I mean, this is a test level that we built. We knew that we had, when we were going to do swinging, we had to get the size of the world right. We had to get the webs attaching to buildings. And so you start with the simplest world and the simplest buildings you can make. And we had to learn all the different like sizes of buildings. I'm watching him fall. What it should feel like to fall, right? How to make it feel like you're swinging.
It's a good start. Look at this.
Even when it's gray blocks, the potential's there. You see it. You see what it's going to become.
Yeah. And you had to get the swing around. I mean, Brian, you've talked about this quite a bit, that the most important thing, one of the first thing you guys worked on, was the swinging had to feel right and it had to look right. And even here in this very, very early,
you're on to something.
You're on to something.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to give a lot of credit to the gameplay programmers and the animators who all collaborated on this. And you know, that's one of the things that we believe in heavily is different teams working together to make something special. And that there are a lot of ideas, certainly, and a lot of play testing early on where we all tried it out and were asking the tough questions. How should its webs attach? What should it feel like?
What can we interact with in the environment? You know, what are the different options? Whether it's just the buildings, or whether we can wall run, or whether we can shoot through fire escapes. All those things have to come up during the play testing and development.
My name is John Paisano. I'm the composer for Marvel's Spider-Man. In our game, Spider-Man's aged up a little bit. He's not in high school anymore. He's an older, more mature Peter Parker. We wanted to make the Peter Parker theme more emotional and introspective.
It's time to get up.
And it was a great theme, but it didn't have that propulsive energy that you might need when he got to be Spider-Man. And then through orchestration and instrumentation and arrangement, we took that Peter Parker theme and we turned it into a Spider-Man theme. It was kind of like putting on a superhero suit on the theme. When it came time to do the trailer, Blur and PlayStation were able to say, let's score this promotional spot. Let's do it live. You're taking a very thematic element now and you're putting it out there for people, so it's exactly what they're going to experience in the game. The trick always in these games, and we thought about this from the very beginning, how do we make the gameplay music as effective as the cinematic music? In movies, you have one piece of music, it's linear, it's static, it always plays the same way. You can play Spider-Man a bunch of different ways, and the music's always going to be changing and conforming depending on the player and what they're doing. So in a weird way, the player is controlling the way that score is operating. Scott and the guys over at PlayStation and the guys over at Insomniac, they developed a whole new system for how they were going to create the music for the game and how it was going to trigger the different layers and different elements, so it never felt like it was looping. Or when you do play the game, it is amazing. I don't even recognize some of the cues because when you're playing it, they're just firing in so many different ways that it just feels like fresh pieces of music all the time, but it still maintains its identity with the thematic elements. Do you have the opportunity to go and watch Spider-Man, or do you want to go and be Spider-Man? I think everyone's going to want to go and be Spider-Man, and I think this game allows you to do that.